After centuries of galactic conflict, the Coalition of Worlds and the Dominion fleet agree to meet in neutral space to negotiate a peace treaty. The location is unusual, a derelict station orbiting a black hole, long abandoned but still operational. Humanity, the newest member of the Coalition, sends its representative, Captain Nadia Soren, to the talks. What begins as tense diplomacy soon unravels into a deadly mystery when the station's systems activate, revealing a sinister force that threatens both factions. The diplomatic shuttle Aurora emerged from hyperspace into the eerie glow of a dying star. Before them loomed the Celestine Citadel, a sprawling station of impossible architecture, suspended on the edge of a black hole's event horizon. Its design was ancient, predating any known civilization, and its faint, pulsing lights suggested it was far from dormant. Captain Nadia Soren adjusted her uniform, her sharp features reflecting the weight of humanity's role in these talks. As the newest member of the Coalition of Worlds, humanity's survival hinged on the success of this treaty. The Dominion fleet, the galaxy's most ruthless empire, had crippled many Coalition worlds, and humanity was next in their sights. Nadia's second-in-command, Lieutenant Varric, leaned toward her. Why here? Of all the places in the galaxy, why negotiate on a ghost station orbiting a black hole? Nadia's voice was steady. Neutral ground, neither side controls it, and according to Coalition records, the station's systems have been inactive for millennia. Varric frowned. Still doesn't explain why it's functioning. Look at those lights. They're following us. The station's exterior shimmered as if alive, faint tendrils of energy rippling across its surface. "We'll tread carefully," Nadia said, more to herself than to Varric. Inside the Celestine Citadel, the Coalition delegation gathered in a massive chamber, its walls adorned with carvings that seemed to shift when viewed from different angles. Representatives from dozens of species sat in uneasy silence, their gazes fixed on the Dominion envoys entering the room. Leading the Dominion was General Virus, a towering figure clad in obsidian armor, his presence radiating menace. His glowing reptilian eyes scanned the room before settling on Nadia. "So," Virus said, his voice a deep growl. "Humanity sends a captain to negotiate peace? Bold, given your species' insignificance." Nadia met his gaze without flinching. "Humanity may be young, General, but we've learned quickly, and we know how to survive." The tension was palpable as the negotiations began. Hours passed as both sides debated territorial disputes, reparations, and disarmament. Progress was slow but steady until the station itself interrupted. The lights in the chamber dimmed, replaced by a harsh red glow. The carvings on the walls pulsed, and an unearthly hum filled the air. "Spectrum," Nadia's portable AI unit chimed. "Captain, the station's systems are activating, energy levels spiking across all sectors." General Virus stood, his clawed hand resting on his weapon. "What trick is this?" Nadia shook her head. "This wasn't us." A voice, ancient and mechanical, echoed through the chamber. "Welcome, inheritors of the stars. Your presence has been noted. The accord shall now begin." The floor beneath them shifted, and the chamber reconfigured itself. Delegates and soldiers alike were separated by rising walls of shimmering energy, creating individual cells. Nadia's heart raced as she found herself alone, her comlink dead. "What is this?" she shouted, but the voice continued, unbothered. "This station was created to ensure unity among the galaxy's factions. Those who cannot cooperate will not leave." Monitors descended from the ceiling, displaying live feeds of the other delegates. Nadia could see General Viras smashing at the energy barrier around him, roaring in frustration. Others were shouting, pleading, or attempting to communicate with their teams. Spectrum's voice whispered in her ear. "Captain, the station is a peace enforcement mechanism. It's scanning all of us, analyzing behavioral patterns. If it determines we can't work together, it will likely escalate." Nadia's stomach dropped. "Escalate how?" "Unknown," Spectrum replied. "But the black hole outside suggests destruction." Nadia focused, taking deep breaths to steady herself. Spectrum, can you interface with the station? I can attempt limited access. The systems are unlike anything I've encountered. Be cautious, Captain. This station's AI predates known galactic history. Its logic may not align with ours. Do what you can, Nadia said, her mind racing. Minutes felt like hours as the energy barriers flickered. The voice returned. Observation complete. You have one cycle to prove your unity. Failure will result in nullification. The monitors changed, showing an ominous countdown. The barriers began to dissolve and the delegates were deposited into a central chamber, now devoid of its earlier grandeur. A single console rose from the floor, glowing with alien glyphs. General Virus growled, "Enough games! What is this machine's demand?" Nadia stepped forward. "It wants us to work together. Whatever's on that console, figuring it out is our only way out of here. And if I simply destroy it?" Virus snarled, raising his weapon. Spectrum's voice spoke loudly, echoing through the room. "Destruction will trigger the station's failsafe. The black hole will consume us all." Virus hesitated, his claws twitching. Nadia took the opportunity to step toward the console. The glyphs shifted under her touch, rearranging into a series of complex puzzles. "It's a test," she murmured. "A test of cooperation." General Virus reluctantly approached, his eyes narrowing. "If this is a trap, human, I will ensure you die first." Nadia glanced at him. "If we fail, no one leaves. Do you want to die proving a point, or live to lead your people?" Virus's scowl deepened, but he lowered his weapon. "What do you need?" Nadia gestured to the console. "We solve this together." The console's interface was a swirling array of alien glyphs, shifting and glowing in response to the energy radiating from the chamber. As the countdown ticked down in the background, the delegates, uneasy and mistrustful, gathered around Nadia and General Virus. "This is insanity," a coalition representative muttered. "We're diplomats, not engineers. How are we supposed to solve this?" "It's not about solving," Nadia said, her voice steady but firm. "It's about cooperation. This station wants us to prove that we can work together, despite everything that divides us." Virus growled, his clawed hand brushing the edge of the console. "Or it wants us to waste precious time before it executes us." Nadia ignored him, gesturing to the glyphs. "Spectrum, can you translate these?" The AI's voice replied in her ear. "The symbols represent interconnected concepts: conflict, resolution, and unity. The console requires simultaneous input from multiple users. Each input alters the patterns for the others." "So it's forcing us to communicate," Nadia muttered. "Great." The console flickered, displaying a grid of energy lines intersecting with nodes. Each node was marked with a unique glyph. Spectrum provided guidance. Each node must be activated in a specific sequence to stabilize the system. Incorrect inputs will result in escalating challenges, likely fatal. Virus leaned closer. "And what happens if we refuse to play this game?" Spectrum's tone darkened. "The countdown suggests you would prefer not to find out." The coalition delegates hesitated, exchanging uneasy glances. Virus slammed his claws on the table, silencing them. "Enough! Assign me a task, human, or I'll assign myself one. Starting with tearing the station apart." Nadia nodded, realizing that inaction would only worsen their chances. "Fine. You'll handle the upper nodes. They're power-based, which means strength and precision. Coalition representatives, you'll focus on the central nodes. Those require negotiation, aligning the patterns with each other. I'll take the lower grid." "And if you fail?" Virus snarled. "Then we fail together," Nadia shot back. The countdown ticked relentlessly as they began. Each touch of the console caused the glyphs to shift, lighting up pathways and forcing the next participant to adapt. Virus grumbled as the energy surged under his claws, requiring him to steady the pathways before moving forward. "Do you always build your puzzles with traps?" he snapped. "They're not my puzzles," Nadia retorted, her focus on deciphering a particularly stubborn node. The coalition delegates struggled with the central grid. The patterns demanded compromise. adjustments that forced each faction to set aside their biases. One node required reducing a coalition-controlled sector's influence, which sparked immediate protests. "This is a trick," one representative shouted. "They want us to give up our territories." Nadia turned sharply. "No one's asking you to surrender anything. This is a simulation. Focus on the logic, not the politics." As tensions mounted, the station reacted. The walls began to hum, and beams of energy flared across the room, narrowly missing the delegates. "Spectrum," Nadia shouted. The AI's voice was strained. "The system is detecting discord among participants. Increased cooperation is required to prevent escalation." Virus bared his teeth. "This is your fault, human. If I were leading, you'd be dead already." Nadia cut him off. "Stop posturing and focus." The room fell into an uneasy rhythm. Each faction worked on their respective nodes, communicating their adjustments and adapting to the changes triggered by others. It was far from perfect. Grumbling and accusations flared up, but progress was being made. Then the console shifted again, introducing a new challenge. The glyphs formed a central node that linked every participant's pathways. "It's forcing synchronization," Spectrum said. "You must all activate this node simultaneously, but only if all prior sequences are aligned perfectly." Virus growled. "If one of you fails, we all die." The countdown ticked louder, its rhythm like a hammer in Nadia's chest. She steadied herself, looking around the room. "This is it," she said. "We're down to the last move. No mistakes." The delegates hesitated, their hands hovering over their nodes. Virus, uncharacteristically silent, placed his clawed hand on his section. "For what it's worth," he muttered. "If this works, your species may be less pathetic than I thought." "I'll take that as a compliment," Nadia replied with a faint smirk. The room fell silent. On Nadia's signal, they activated their nodes. The console flared with light, energy coursing through the glyphs and illuminating the room in brilliant synchronized patterns. The countdown froze at 0. For a moment, everything was still. Then the station's voice returned, its tone softer, almost approving. "Unity achieved. You are worthy of survival." The room shook violently as the console retracted, the energy dissipating. The delegates braced for an attack, but the station instead opened a pathway back to their ships. As the delegates returned to their vessels, Nadia paused, looking back at the Celestine Citadel. "It let us live, but why the test? What was the point?" Spectrum's voice was thoughtful. "Perhaps it was a warning. Survival isn't guaranteed. Unity must be earned and maintained." The Aurora departed as the station's lights dimmed, the black hole's pull tugging faintly at its edges. The treaty was signed days later, and for the first time in centuries, peace seemed possible. But in the vast darkness of space, the Celestine Citadel remained. A silent reminder that unity was not just humanity's challenge, but the galaxy's. The station's final glyph pulsed faintly, its meaning clear to those who understood. "This is all."